The warning came at 3:47 in the morning. Admiral Park was sleeping in his quarters aboard the flagship when the alarm pulled him from his dreams. He had commanded Earth's United Fleet for 15 years, and he had never heard this particular alarm before. It was the one they hoped would never sound, the one that meant first contact. He dressed quickly and ran to the bridge. His officers were already there, their faces pale in the blue light of the holographic displays. Captain turned to face him. She was young for her rank, only 32, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Right now, she looked afraid. "Admiral," she said, "you need to see this." The main display showed the edge of the Sol system. There, just beyond Neptune's orbit, 500 ships had appeared. They were massive. The smallest was twice the size of the largest was almost 10 kilometers long. They hung in space like a wall of metal and death. "How long have they been there?" asked. 17 minutes, replied. "They came out of some kind of faster-than-light travel. Our sensors didn't detect them until they were already here." Studied the alien fleet. The ships were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls were smooth and silver, covered in patterns that might have been writing or decoration. They did not look like machines of war. They looked like temples, but had been a soldier long enough to know that beautiful things could kill. "Have they made contact?" he asked. "Yes, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Dr. Shin is working on the translation now." Dr. Shin was Earth's best, though until today her job had been purely theoretical. She had spent 20 years preparing to talk to aliens that might not exist. Now she sat at her station, her fingers moving fast across her console, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "The language is complex," she said without looking up, "but they're using a mathematical base that I can work with. Give me a few more minutes." Nodded, he looked back at the alien fleet and tried to calculate their chances. Earth had 300 warships. The colonies had another 200. Against 500 alien vessels of unknown capability, those numbers meant nothing. "Order all ships to defensive positions," he said, "but no one fires unless I give the command. Understood?" "Yes, Admiral," said. The next few minutes felt like hours. Officers moved quietly across the bridge, checking systems and running calculations. Everyone was afraid, but they did their jobs. That was what training was for. Finally, Dr. Shin looked up. Her face had gone very pale. "I have it," she said. "They call themselves the hegemony. They say they have come in peace. They want to meet with Earth's leaders." "Peace," repeated. He did not believe it. You did not bring 500 warships to a peace meeting, but he also knew that humanity could not win a fight today. They needed time. Time to prepare, time to learn, time to understand what they were facing. "Tell them we accept," he said. "We will meet them." The meeting place was chosen carefully. A space station called orbited Mars, far enough from Earth to feel neutral, close enough that human ships could respond if something went wrong. Traveled there with a small delegation. Dr. Shin came to translate. General Minyu came to represent Earth's military council. Commander came to watch and listen and remember everything she saw. The aliens arrived in a shuttle that was larger than most human ships. It docked with, and the airlock opened with a hiss of strange-smelling air. Then they came aboard. They were tall. The shortest was over 2 meters, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were solid black, like pools of ink. They wore robes of white and gold, and they carried no visible weapons. Behind them walked guards in silver armor, each one holding a staff that hummed with energy. At the front walked their leader. He was taller than the others, and his robes were more elaborate. His face was calm, almost kind. He smiled as he approached the human delegation, and his smile was the most terrifying thing had ever seen. "I am High Emissary," the alien said. His voice was smooth and pleasant, like a father speaking to a child. "I bring greetings from the hegemony. We have traveled very far to meet you." stepped forward. "I am Admiral Park. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I welcome you." "How gracious," said. His black eyes moved across the humans, studying them like a scientist studying insects. "Your species is young, your civilization is small, and yet you have spread across 12 star systems in only 300 years. That is impressive for primitives." The word hung in the air. Primitives. Dr. Shin's translation had been accurate. The meant exactly what he said. "We have worked hard," replied carefully. "We are proud of what we have built." "As you should be," said. "Many species never leave their birth world. Many destroy themselves before they reach the stars. You have done well. That is why the hegemony has taken notice. That is why we are here." "And why exactly are you here?" General Minu asked. He was an old soldier, gray-haired, and he had no patience for games. Turned his black eyes toward the general. For a moment, something flickered in their depths. Annoyance, perhaps, or amusement. "We are here to offer you guidance," said. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous. There are threats you cannot imagine, powers that would destroy you without thought. The hegemony has protected countless species from these dangers. We have brought order to chaos, peace to war. We have built an empire that spans 3 galaxies, and we have done so through wisdom and strength." "That sounds generous," Commander said quietly. She was recording everything, her eyes never leaving the alien's face. "It is generous," agreed. "More generous than you know. The hegemony does not offer its protection lightly. Many species have begged for our help and been refused, but you are special. Your potential is great. Under our guidance, you could become something magnificent." Listened to the words, but he heard the meaning beneath them. This was not an offer of friendship. This was not even an offer of alliance. This was something else entirely. "What would this guidance involve?" he asked. Smiled again, that terrible patient smile. "We have watched your species for centuries," he said. "We have seen your wars and your struggles. We have seen your capacity for both creation and destruction. Now, it is time you learned your place." The room went silent. The humans looked at each other, then back at the alien. Stood perfectly still, his smile never changing, his black eyes filled with something that might have been contempt. Outside the station windows, the alien fleet waited in the darkness. 500 ships, an army from the stars. And somewhere behind those black eyes, a plan that humanity was only beginning to understand. Admiral Park looked at the alien called, and he felt something cold settle in his stomach. Not fear, exactly. Something older. Something that every human carried in their blood, passed down from ancestors who had faced wolves and storms and enemies in the night. It was the feeling of being hunted. And knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever came next would change humanity forever. The meeting room aboard station was cold. They had requested a lower temperature, something closer to their home world. The humans sat in their chairs and tried not to shiver. Admiral thought it was fitting. The cold matched the words they were about to hear. High Emissary stood at the head of the table. Behind him, his guards waited like statues of silver. The alien's black eyes moved slowly across the human delegation, and his smile had not changed since he first stepped aboard. "Let me tell you about the hegemony," began. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We are old, older than your species can understand. When your ancestors were still learning to walk upright, we had already conquered 1,000 worlds. When your first civilizations built their first cities, we controlled an entire galaxy." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, the hegemony spans 3 galaxies. We rule over 217 species. We control resources beyond your imagination. Our technology is so advanced that it would look like magic to your scientists. We are, without question, the greatest power in the known universe." General Minu leaned forward. "That's impressive, but you still haven't told us what you want." "Patience, General," said. "I am giving you context. You need to understand what you are dealing with before you can understand our offer." He waved his hand, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a galaxy, then another, then another. Stars and planets and systems, all marked with the symbol of the hegemony. Every species we have encountered has faced a choice, continued. They can join us willingly and enjoy the benefits of our protection, or they can refuse and face the consequences. What consequences? Dr. Shin asked. Her voice was steady but could see her hands trembling under the table. Turned his black eyes toward her. Extinction. The word fell like a stone into still water. The humans looked at each other. Commander kept her face blank, but her fingers moved quietly across her recording device. You're saying you've destroyed entire species? Asked. 14, replied. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. 14 species have refused our guidance. 14 species no longer exist. Their worlds are empty now. Their cities are dust. Their names are forgotten by all except us. We remember them as warnings. He smiled again. We do not enjoy extinction. It is wasteful. It destroys potential. But it is sometimes necessary. Order must be maintained. The galaxy must be protected from chaos, and species that refuse to accept their place create chaos. General Minu's hands had become fists, so this is not an offer, this is a threat. It is reality, said. I'm not here to threaten you, I am here to explain your situation clearly. You are a young species, you are primitive, you are weak. You cannot fight the hegemony, you cannot hide from us, you cannot run. Your only choice is how you respond to what I am about to tell you. He waved his hand again and the holographic display changed. It showed a document covered in alien writing. Dr. Shin's eyes moved across it and her face grew pale. These are the terms of integration, said. They are not negotiable, they are not suggestions, they are requirements. He began to read. First, you will disarm completely. All warships will be destroyed. All weapons will be surrendered. You will have no military of any kind. Second, you will give up all territory outside your home system. Your colonies will become property of the hegemony. Your people there will be relocated or integrated as we see fit. Third, every human will be genetically registered in our database. We will know who you are, where you are, and what you are capable of. There will be no secrets from the hegemony. Fourth, you will pay tribute. 20% of all resources you produce will go to the hegemony. This is the price of our protection. Fifth, you will accept governors to oversee your world. They will ensure that you follow our laws and serve our interests. He stopped reading and looked at the humans. These terms are standard. Every species in the hegemony has accepted them. You will accept them too. The room was silent. Felt something burning in his chest. It was anger, hot and pure. He looked at his colleagues and saw the same fire in their eyes. Even Dr. Shin, who had spent her life dreaming of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, looked ready to fight. And if we refuse? Asked quietly. Tilted his head as if the question confused him. No species has refused in the last 4,000 years. The last one that tried was called they were proud warriors. They believed their courage would save them. They were wrong. He paused. We burned their worlds. We destroyed their fleets. We hunted them across the stars until not one remained. It took us 3 months. It could have taken less, but we wanted other species to see. We wanted them to understand. Understand what? Commander asked. That resistance is not brave, it is stupid. It accomplishes nothing except suffering and death. They are gone. Their courage did not save them. Nothing could save them. And nothing can save you if you choose the same path. He stepped closer to the table, and his shadow fell across the human delegation. You have 72 hours to accept our terms. After that, we will assume you have chosen extinction. Our fleet will move toward Earth. Your cities will burn. Your people will die. And in 100 years, no one will remember that humans ever existed. General Menu stood up. His chair fell backward with a crash. You think you can come here and threaten us? You think we'll just surrender everything our species has built? Looked at him with something like pity. Yes, because you are rational beings, you can count our ships, you can measure our power, you know you cannot win, and rational beings do not choose death over survival. Maybe we're not as rational as you think, Minu growled. Then you will die, said simply, and your death will be meaningless, just like every species that tried to stand against us. He turned and walked toward the door. His guards fell in behind him. 72 hours, he said without looking back. Choose wisely. The airlock closed behind him. The humans sat in silence, listening to the sound of the alien shuttle detaching from the station. Finally, Admiral spoke. Commander, did you get everything? Every word, replied. Good, because I want the whole world to hear what was said in this room. He walked to the window and looked out at the alien fleet. 500 ships waiting in the darkness. Behind them, somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, 3 galaxies of slaves and conquered peoples. And here, on a small station orbiting Mars, a handful of humans who had just been told to surrender or die. Dr. Shin came to stand beside him. What are we going to do? Was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face his colleagues. His eyes were hard and his voice was steady. They've made a mistake, he said. They think we're afraid. They think we'll bow down like every other species they've met. They think we're weak. He looked out at the alien fleet one more time. They're wrong. They have no idea what they're dealing with. They don't know our history. They don't know what humans do when someone threatens our homes, our families, our future. General Minu nodded slowly. So we fight. We go back to Earth, said. We show everyone what they said, and then we let humanity decide. But I already know what the answer will be. He turned away from the window. 72 hours. That's how long they gave us to surrender. Let's see how they like our response. The world watched in silence. Commander's recording played on every screen on Earth. In homes and offices, in schools and hospitals, in the streets of every city, people stopped what they were doing and listened. They heard High Emissary explain the terms. They heard him speak of extinction. They heard him give humanity 72 hours to surrender everything they had built. When the recording ended, there was silence. Then there was anger. In Seoul, the United Nations called an emergency assembly. It was the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and diplomats, scientists and philosophers. They came from every nation, every colony, every corner of human civilization. They came to decide the fate of their species. Admiral Park stood at the center of the assembly hall. He had not slept since the meeting with. His eyes were tired, but his voice was strong. You have all seen the recording, he said. You know what they want, complete surrender, our weapons, our colonies, our freedom, everything we have worked for given away, and in return they promise not to kill us. He paused and looked around the room. For now, murmurs rippled through the assembly, raised his hand for silence. Let me be clear about what surrender means. It does not mean peace. It means slavery. It means our children will grow up under alien rule. It means our will be servants of the hegemony, paying tribute to masters who see us as primitives. It means the end of everything that makes us human. A delegate from Europe stood up. Her face was pale with fear. But what choice do we have? You saw their fleet, 500 ships. We cannot fight that. No, agreed. We cannot fight that, not today, but that does not mean we cannot fight at all. He gestured to General Minu, who activated a holographic display. The image showed a network of stations and platforms hidden throughout the solar system. This is Operation Horizon, said. 80 years ago, our ancestors looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone. They hoped we were not, but they also feared what we might find, so they prepared. The display expanded, revealing more and more hidden installations, weapons platforms hidden in asteroid belts, shipyards buried beneath the ice of distant moons, fleets of stealth vessels waiting in the darkness. They built in secret. Generation after generation they added to the network. They never told the public because they did not want to cause fear, but they knew that someday something might come from the stars, something dangerous, something hostile, and when that day came, they wanted humanity to have a chance. The assembly hall was completely silent now. Every eye was fixed on the display. "We have 300 warships that they know about," continued. "What they do not know is that we have 800 more. We have weapons they have never seen. We have tactics they cannot predict. We have been preparing for this moment for longer than any of us have been alive." He turned off the display and faced the assembly. "Can we beat them? I don't know, but I know this: we can hurt them. We can make them pay for every inch of space. We can show them that humans are not like the species they have conquered before. We can fight." Captain stepped forward. She had been analyzing data since the first moment of contact, and she had discovered something important. "They have conquered over 200 species," she said. "Every single one surrendered without a fight. They saw the hegemony's power and gave up. That is why the hegemony is so confident. They have never faced real resistance. They do not know what it looks like." She projected images onto the display. Alien civilizations, beautiful and advanced, all reduced to servants of the hegemony. These species were not weak. Many of them were more advanced than us, but they were afraid. They calculated the odds and decided that surrender was the logical choice. They chose survival over freedom. She paused. "But humans are different. Our history is written in blood and fire. We have fought each other for 10,000 years. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We do not surrender. It is not in our nature. When someone threatens us, we fight back. Even when we cannot win, we fight. Because for humans, survival without freedom is not survival at all." Dr. Shin stood next. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I have studied the hegemony's history. I have looked at what happened to the species that surrendered. They did not find peace. They found slow death. Their cultures were erased. Their populations were controlled. Their futures were decided by alien masters who did not care about their hopes or dreams. Within a few generations, they stopped being themselves. They became tools of the hegemony, nothing more." She looked around the room. "Surrender does not save us. It only delays our extinction. They do not want partners. They want slaves, and slaves eventually become nothing." The debate continued for hours. Some argued for surrender. They pointed to the numbers, the impossible odds, the certainty of massive casualties. They spoke of children who would die in the fighting, of cities that would burn, of colonies that would be destroyed. Others argued for war. They spoke of honor and dignity, of the duty to resist evil, of the legacy they would leave for future generations. They said that some things were worth dying for, and freedom was one of them. Finally, after 36 hours of debate, the vote was called. 194 nations voted for war. 3 nations abstained. Not a single nation voted for surrender. When the results were announced, something strange happened. People in the assembly hall did not cheer. They did not celebrate. Instead, they stood in silence, feeling the weight of what they had just decided. They had chosen to fight an enemy that might destroy them. They had chosen death over slavery. And in that moment, they had never felt more human. Admiral walked to the communication station. He had prepared a message, written and rewritten a dozen times during the long hours of debate. Now he spoke it aloud, and his words were broadcast across every frequency, sent toward the alien fleet waiting at the edge of the solar system. To the hegemony, we, the United Nations and colonies of humanity, have received your terms. We have discussed them. We have considered them carefully. And we reject them completely. Your ultimatum is refused. Your threats are noted. Your offer of slavery disguised as protection is recognized for what it is. You have given us 72 hours to surrender. Instead, we give you this, a formal declaration of war. We will not kneel. We will not bow. We will not give up our children's future so that we might live a few more years as servants. You have conquered 200 species. You have destroyed 14 more. You think you know what resistance looks like. You are wrong. You have never faced humans. Come and try to take what is ours. Come and learn what it means to fight a species that would rather die free than live in chains. We are ready for you. The message ended. The assembly hall was silent. Somewhere in the darkness beyond Neptune, High Emissary received the transmission. He listened to every word, and for the first time in his 300 years of service to the hegemony, he felt something he had never felt before. Uncertainty. These humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered. They were not rational. They were not calculating. They were choosing death when survival was offered. He did not understand them, and that he realized might be a problem. He turned to his aide. Send word to Overlord. Tell him to prepare the fleet for combat operations. Yes, High Emissary, and the humans looked out at the distant light of Earth's sun. They have made their choice. Now they will learn what that choice costs. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered something troubling. What if they already know? What if they simply do not care? He pushed the thought away. It was impossible. No species was that foolish. Were they? Overlord was not impressed by humans. He stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Eternal Will, and studied the tactical displays with cold eyes. 500 warships under his command, the finest fleet in the hegemony. They had crushed rebellions, conquered systems, and brought order to chaos across 3 galaxies. And now they were being sent to destroy a primitive species that had been foolish enough to refuse surrender. How many ships do they have? He asked. Our intelligence suggests 300 combat vessels, his tactical officer replied. Primitive designs, chemical propulsion, basic energy weapons, nothing that poses a serious threat. And their defenses? Minimal, a few orbital platforms around their colonies, nothing significant around their home world. Nodded, this would be easy, almost boring. The humans had made their choice and now they would die for it. It was the natural order of things. Begin the advance, he ordered. Standard conquest formation. We will crush their fleet, burn their colonies, and end this within 1 solar cycle. The fleet moved forward, 500 ships arranged in perfect formation advancing toward the inner solar system. They passed Neptune. They passed Uranus. They approached Saturn and its great rings. And then everything went wrong. The first warning came from a scout ship near Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The pilot reported unusual energy readings from the moon's surface. Before he could say more, his ship exploded. Frowned, what happened? His tactical officer's face had gone pale. Unknown weapons fire from Titan's surface, multiple sources, very powerful. Before could respond, the space around his fleet lit up with fire. Platforms hidden beneath Titan's ice opened fire. They had been waiting for 80 years, silent and patient. Now they unleashed their fury. Metal projectiles the size of small cars flew through space at incredible speed. They hit shields and punched straight through. 40 warships died in the first 30 seconds. Stared at his displays in disbelief. Shields were the finest in the galaxy. No species had ever broken them so easily. But the human weapons were different. They were simple, brutal. They used kinetic energy instead of exotic particles. They hit with physical force that the shields could not absorb. Return fire, shouted. Destroy those platforms. His ships turned their weapons toward Titan, but it was too late. The humans had sprung their trap and they were not finished. From the shadow of Saturn's rings, the hidden fleet emerged. 800 warships, ships that they did not know existed, ships that had been built in secret, hidden in places no one thought to look. They came out of the darkness like ghosts, and at their head flew the Admiral Park's flagship. "All ships engage," ordered. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. This was the moment they had prepared for. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future. Lieutenant led the Black Phoenix squadron into battle. 200 fighter craft, small and fast, designed to slip through enemy defenses. They flew in tight formation, dodging fire, searching for weak points. "Target their engine sections," commanded. "Their shields are weakest there." The fighters dove toward the ships. They released their missiles at close range, too close for the enemy to respond. Engines exploded. Ships began to drift. The perfect formation started to break apart. The captain coordinated the fleet's movements. She had studied every piece of data they had on tactics. She knew how they thought, how they fought, how they responded to pressure. "They're trying to regroup," she said. "Send the 3rd Division to cut them off, force them toward the platforms." Nodded. "Do it." Human ships surged forward. They were smaller than the vessels, less powerful, less advanced. But they were fast and clever and willing to die. They threw themselves at the enemy with a fury that they had never seen. On the Eternal Will, Overlord watched his fleet crumble. This was impossible. The humans were primitives. Their technology was inferior. How were they winning? "Sir, we've lost 87 ships," his tactical officer reported. His voice was shaking. "The enemy shows no signs of retreat." "They're insane," whispered. "They must know they can't defeat us. Why don't they run?" But the humans did not run. They pressed their attack ship after ship, wave after wave. They took losses, terrible losses. For every ship they destroyed, they lost 2 of their own. But they did not stop. Lieutenant's fighter took a direct hit. His cockpit filled with smoke and warning lights. His engines were failing. He had seconds to live. He aimed his dying ship at the nearest cruiser and accelerated. "For Earth," he said. His fighter struck the cruiser's bridge at maximum speed. The explosion ripped through the alien ship, killing everyone aboard. Died instantly, but he died fighting. He died free. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human pilots flew suicide runs into ships. Human captains rammed their damaged vessels into enemy formations. Human soldiers fought with a desperation that seemed beyond reason. Had conquered dozens of species. He had seen resistance before, but he had never seen anything like this. These humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt, to punish, to make the hegemony bleed. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we've lost 112 ships, if we continue at this rate." Understood. For the first time in his military career, he gave an order he had never given before. "All ships fall back, retreat to Neptune's orbit." The fleet, they left behind the burning remains of over 100 warships. They left behind their dead. They left behind their pride. The humans did not pursue. They could not. Their losses were too heavy, their ships too damaged. But they had done what no species had done in 4,000 years. They had made the hegemony retreat. The admiral stood in silence. Around him, his officers were cheering, hugging each other, crying with relief. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But felt no joy. He looked at the casualty reports scrolling across his display. 237 human ships destroyed. 18,000 crew members dead. Among them, Lieutenant, who had given his life to destroy an enemy cruiser. This was just the beginning. They would be back. They would bring more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The war would continue and more people would die. "Sir," Captain said softly, "are you all right?" Turned to face her. His eyes were sad but determined. "We hurt them today," he said. "We showed them that humans fight back, but this isn't over. This isn't even close to over." "I know," replied, But today we gave our people hope that matters. He nodded slowly. Yes, it matters. On the command ship, sat alone in his quarters, reviewing human history files. He had been curious about this species ever since they refused to surrender. Now, after watching the battle, he understood why they had made that choice. The files showed him everything: 10,000 years of war, empires rising and falling, nations fighting for territory, for resources, for ideas, millions dead in conflicts that seemed pointless. And yet through it all humanity had survived, grown, spread across the stars. These humans were not like other species. They were not peaceful by nature. They were not afraid of death. They had been fighting each other since the beginning of their history. War was not something new to them. War was what they were. Closed the files and sat back in his chair. For the first time, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. What have we awakened? He whispered to the empty room. What have we done? No one answered, but somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was preparing for the battles to come. And they were just getting started. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Titan, 6 months of blood and fire and death. They had learned from their defeat. They brought reinforcements from their nearest conquered systems. 2,000 warships now filled the outer solar system. They moved slowly, carefully, taking no chances. They had underestimated humans once. They would not do so again. Humanity fought back with everything they had. Every factory on Earth and the colonies worked day and night, building ships, weapons, and supplies. Every man and woman who could hold a weapon was trained to fight. Children learned to hide and survive. Old people shared their knowledge and memories. The entire species united in a way it had never united before. But unity was not enough. The enemy was too strong. One by one, the outer colonies fell. Europa was first. The moon had been home to 3 million people living in cities beneath the ice. They surrounded it with 100 ships and demanded surrender. The colonists refused. The bombardment lasted 12 hours. When it ended, Europa was silent. Then came Ganymede, then Callisto, then the mining stations of the asteroid belt. Each time the humans fought, each time they lost, each time more people died. Admiral Park watched the reports from his command center on Mars. His face was gray with exhaustion. He had not slept more than 3 hours at a time since the war began. Every decision he made sent people to their deaths. Every battle cost more than humanity could afford to lose. "We're running out of time," General Menu said quietly. He stood beside, looking at the same reports. "If they reach Earth, it's over." "I know," replied. "We need something to change, something unexpected, otherwise." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Far from Mars, in a small shuttle hidden among the wreckage of a destroyed colony, Commander was working on that very problem. She had been behind enemy lines for 3 months. Her mission was simple but dangerous: learn everything she could about find weaknesses, find hope. She had found something better. The communication network was vast and complex. It connected thousands of systems across 3 galaxies, but had discovered that it was not as secure as the aliens believed. She had found a way in. For weeks she listened, she learned, and what she learned changed everything. The hegemony was not as united as it appeared. The conquered species were not loyal. They were afraid. They served because they had no choice, but beneath their obedience was hatred, deep, burning hatred for the who had destroyed their freedom. And now, those species were watching humanity's war with great interest. Sent a coded message to Admiral. It contained everything she had learned: the internal tensions, the secret resentments, the growing whispers of rebellion among the slave races. "They're afraid of us," she wrote. "Not our weapons, not our ships. They're afraid of what we represent. Hope. The idea that the hegemony can be defeated. If we can hold on, if we can keep fighting, others will join us. The hegemony's empire is built on fear, and fear can be broken. Read the message 3 times. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. "Get me Dr. Shin," he ordered. "I have an idea." Dr. Shin had spent the war developing ways to communicate with non-species. It was difficult work. There were hundreds of languages, thousands of cultural differences, but she had made progress. Slow, careful progress. Now asked her to do something she had never done before. "I want you to send a message," he said. "Not to everyone else, every conquered species in the hegemony, every world that lives under their rule." "What kind of message?" asked. "The truth. Tell them what we're doing. Tell them why we're fighting. Tell them that surrender is not the only option. Tell them that freedom is possible." His eyes widened. "You want to start a rebellion across the entire hegemony." "I want to remind them that they have a choice, just like we had a choice. To control them through fear. We can offer them something stronger than fear." "What?" "Hope." The broadcast went out 3 days later. It was sent on frequencies that only enslaved species would receive, hidden from monitoring systems. Dr. Shin spoke in 17 different languages, delivering the same message over and over. "This is Dr. Shin speaking on behalf of humanity. We know you are listening. We know you are afraid. We understand. The hegemony is powerful. They have ruled you for centuries. They have told you that resistance is impossible. They were wrong. We are human. 6 months ago, the hegemony came to our world and demanded our surrender. We refused. They attacked us with 500 warships. We fought back. We made them retreat. They came again with 2,000 ships. We are still fighting. We are still free. We do not know if we will win this war. We may die. Our worlds may burn, but we will not surrender, because we believe that freedom is worth more than survival. We believe that living on our knees is not living at all. If you believe the same, then know this. You are not alone. The hegemony is not invincible. Their power comes from your fear. If you stop being afraid, they become weak. We cannot tell you what to do. We cannot promise victory, but we can tell you the truth. You have a choice. You have always had a choice. The just made you forget. Remember." The message spread like fire. Across 3 galaxies, enslaved species heard the words of the human doctor. They listened. They talked. They began to think thoughts they had not allowed themselves to think for generations. On 100 worlds, something began to stir. But on Europa's icy grave, something else was happening. Lieutenant was not dead. His fighter had crashed, not exploded. He had survived the impact barely. For 3 months he had hidden among the ruins, surviving on emergency rations and melted ice. He had found other survivors, soldiers, colonists, children who had escaped the bombardment. They were 37 people. They had almost no weapons. They had almost no hope. But they had something else. They had anger. Organized them into a resistance cell. They could not fight the warships, but they could fight the ground troops the aliens sent to secure the ruins. They attacked supply convoys. They sabotaged equipment. They made the afraid to walk alone. It was not much, but it was something. It was proof that humans did not stop fighting even when they had already lost. Word of the Europa resistance spread. Other colonies began forming their own cells. The war was not just in space anymore. It was on the ground, in the shadows, in the hearts of people who refused to give up. As the 6th month ended, Admiral received reports from across the solar system. The news was grim. Humanity had lost half its fleet. The outer colonies were gone. Earth itself would soon be under threat. But there was other news too. Strange news, wonderful news. In the hegemony, something was happening. On a dozen worlds, small rebellions had broken out. Slave species were refusing orders. Supply lines were being disrupted. They were being forced to send ships away from the human front to deal with problems at home. It's working, General Minu said, reading the intelligence reports. They're starting to crack. Nodded slowly. But it's not enough. Not yet. That will crush those rebellions quickly. We need to give them something bigger to worry about. We need to win a battle so big that every slave in the hegemony believes victory is possible. Do you have a plan? Looked out the window at the red surface of Mars. Beyond it, somewhere in the darkness, over 2,000 enemy ships were preparing for the final assault on Earth. They're going to attack Earth soon, he said. They'll bring everything they have, their entire fleet, their best commanders. They want to end this war with one decisive victory. And we're going to let them come. We're going to let them think they're winning. And then we're going to hit them with everything we have left, every ship, every weapon, every trick we've learned in 6 months of war. He turned to face the general. His eyes were hard and bright. They have numbers, they have experience, but they have never faced a species that refuses to die. Tomorrow, we remind the galaxy why humanity survives. He paused. Tomorrow, we fight for Earth.